My name is Eklavya Prasad and I'm associated with an organization called Megh, Pyne, Abhiyan, and we are working on different typologies of floods and trying to see as to whether there is any need to look at, say, groundwater, which apparently is the biggest source for drinking water, for agricultural purposes, and also for other domestic chores. And what exactly needs to be done in order to ensure that people have access to safe water throughout the year. Now, MPA as a network, we began talking about how people can have access to safe water during floods, because during floods there is water all around, but there is hardly a drop of safe water. And after a while, it was the community with whom we were kind of talking about why not adopting rainwater harvesting, which we saw in 2007 was hugely adopted across North Bihar, primarily because 2007 floods was really bad. 22 districts underwater, and almost about 25 million people were affected. While we were trying to move ahead with our own plan of looking at rainwater harvesting in a more structured manner, or in a newer manner, or in an innovative manner to promote, we started getting fillers from the community that it is high time that we also started looking at water post floods, not to concentrate only during the flood period. And that is when we got to know that the groundwater scenario is kind of bad, because none of us were actually aware of the groundwater scenario. We were not dealing with groundwater. After building our own capacities, and mind you, the team that we were working with were all villagers. I was the only one, and we had another professional who was a social anthropologist who had come down from Italy, Luisa. She came and she was working with us in that area at that point of time. And apart from two of us, there were no professionals. They were all villagers with whom we were working, and they were the ones who were trained to undertake these water testing exercises. When we did, then we realized that there is a huge problem of arsenic, of iron, of microbiological contamination. And when we had the problem in front of us, we said, okay, let's go to the community and tell them about the problem. And then what? We just tell the community that, okay, this is the problem, you don't drink that water. What options do they have? So are we going and creating a kind of fear psychosis in the community, saying that, okay, you don't drink that water, but we don't have anything to tell you as to what you should be doing? That was the time when we started doing an exercise which was very interesting, which has helped us even till today. We started moving within the communities and trying to figure out as to what are there any symbols of hope within the community. Why is it so that we are trying to look at solutions outside? Are there anything? Is there something which we can work on? What we decided was to go back to the community and start looking at symbols, whether is there anything which can help us in addressing these issues? And while looking for symbols meant that we go to the community, the places where we are working, start interacting with people and asking them as to what are the options that we have? What are the ways in that certain problems, and interestingly, their understanding or their explanation of problems were all aesthetics. So for them, water was bad when it changed colors. Water was bad when it had a foul smell. Water was bad when it looked heavy. So that was very interesting, and for us it was, whether the pH, the arsenic, the fluoride, the nitrate, and etc., etc. So while we were moving around, we started asking what are the alternatives that this community had. Initially, we were told that there has been no alternative. People have been surviving only on on hand pumps, which was slightly difficult to digest. Now, we started probing further, pushing people, talking to the elderly, trying to understand what was it earlier, or are there any symbols still around. And with great difficulty, we found that there were a couple of these traditional systems, like for instance dugwell, still around, and they were alive largely because there is a tradition in North Bihar where when the newlywed they come into the village, they are first taken to the dugwell for some puja. So it was alive because of that, not because it became a source of drinking water. Then we came across community where people were actually drinking water, but the population is extremely small. And so when we had this dug well, we started testing the water of the dug well, and then we realized that the hand pump which was close to the dug well had arsenic in it, and the dug well was not having arsenic. The same hand pump had arsenic and iron, and the dug well was not having any iron or arsenic. Now that was funny. So we thought maybe this is one which has kind of given us this result. Let's try looking at the same district, other villages also. Then we thought we found similar results. Then we said, okay, in this district we have found that. Let's go to the remaining 4. When we started looking there, the same kind of results were coming on. We were like, there is a trend here. There is a story here. And I was told that go back and look at their way of working. In the meantime, Luisa, my colleague who had come in from Italy and was working with us, she was doing a research on dug wells, and she said, I see a trend in the pattern in which they draw water, and which was fascinating. And the whole concept is called pani todna. Is called breaking of water. So what do people do is they take the bucket, normally they use iron bucket, they throw in the bucket into the dug well, they fill the bucket, they pull it up and they throw it back again. They pull it up and they do it about twice, thrice, and then they finally put on the water. So you ask them as to what are you doing? They say, no, we are trying to get fresh water, and the fresh water will come when you break the water. Science comes in and says that the breaking is basically oxidation, and when the oxidation happens, ferrous turns into ferric and it precipitates, and while it's precipitating, it takes the arsenic along with it and it precipitates, and it goes and settles down in the bottom of the dug well. So the water is arsenic and iron free. And in the same area of North Bihar, largely in the Mithilanchal area, there used to be a festival called Dhul Shital. This was somewhere around Holi, that every year the community used to come together and clean the dug well. So they used to take out the entire the silt which was down below. So in a way they were cleaning the dug well and ready for it to be used in the coming year. Now I don't know whether people then knew arsenic. I don't know people then knew iron. I don't know people then knew the interaction between arsenic and iron. But that practice which was there continues, in the sense the concept is there, right? And that is the reason why hand pumps today are yielding iron and arsenic water, and dug wells are yielding iron and arsenic free water. The contention, the problem is that if you do not keep dug wells clean, then it might have microbiological contamination. So when we got to know this, we were pretty excited, and we thought, let's start talking to people about using dug well, because one, it's a traditional source. Second, people know the science behind it, but though there are very few, that generation who knew how to get a dug well done, they knew how to get it, manage it, they're now going away. So newer generation are not aware of that, those nitty-gritties, those nuances. But still, when we thought of working on this, we reached out to these people. They were enthusiastic. They used to say that if you have water from a dug well, whatever you've had, it will get digested. And the same thing they used to say for rainwater as well. So here we started seeing a kind of a narrative which was emerging from the village in support of a traditional system, and it was just not a kind of a blatant support. It was making sense. It was making sense to promote dug well as an alternative source along Ganga, where arsenic is there, also in areas like Paschim Champaran, Supol, Saharsa, where we have found traces of arsenic. We kind of started building a narrative about it, and at the same time went back to the community with the facts that we had, started talking to them. And then we started a process where we were working on revivals. So, let us revive a dug well. We do not reconstruct it right now, let us revive a dug well. And the revival process was largely to see whether there is enthusiasm or not, or to see as to what will it take for us to convince them. What is it that people are wanting? And my initial period of revival was tough because people were not interested in dug wells. They were interested in hand pumps, and hand pumps because they were told that that water that you are getting is fresh. That's, it's coming out from the source, so that's a fresh water. So, we had to counter it a lot. We failed. We failed for a while, for a long time to generate that interest. And then we got to the youth and we told them, look, this is the status. You are sitting actually on an aquifer which has huge loads of arsenic. So, you need to understand as to what you need to do. We can only tell you all. So, that process started by we started talking to people about why it is important to talk about dug wells. And it was important for us to put this narrative out. And we at that point of time there was a lot of passion to say that this is something new that has gotten and let us start pushing it. And so during the first, while we were ending with our first phase, we realized that the outcomes has been that today in the entire narrative of safe drinking water for North Bihar, at least there is a new element that has got factored, and that was of dug well. There were immense challenges. It's still not a win-win situation for us. It's been hugely challenging because there is a section that is not ready to consider this as an alternative. They consider that unless and until you have mechanisms, you have mechanics, you have nuts and bolts, you have some scary looking structures, till then this problem is not going to get solved. And I don't understand as to why we are so skeptical about a knowledge that has lasted since eons. It has survived through civilizations. You go to Nalanda University, you will see a dug well at the age of the Nalanda University. It has survived. The concept has survived. That's the reason why you still find it in different parts of the country and in different shapes. Also telling us that how can dug wells be appropriated? How can they be contextualized? We will see a difference of dug wells in Paschim Champaran and in Khagadia. And then you will say, there is a difference here. The making is a difference. So, if that is the level to which the local knowledge system has been relevant, why is it so that dug wells are still being considered as an element which is archaic? When we have proof that dug wells will provide you with iron and arsenic free water. So, the issue is, how do you move ahead? The moving ahead is in terms of developing more of these local narratives that we are dealing with, looking at people of how they are getting convinced and taking this to another level, how people are addressing issues in different platforms. Now, looking at this, there seems to be a lot of potential to make this work. First is in Paschim Champaran there is a Tharuat region. Tharuat region is the place where the Tharus as a tribe they stay, which is adjoining to Nepal. And in that entire region you will see the culture of dug wells still be available. So, if there is a huge potential to take that work there, to actually document as to how the knowledge is still alive and why it is functioning there, why people are still dependent on that. So, that element is there, and the learnings from there can be used to create this awareness along in Paschim Champaran. Paschim Champaran has pockets which has arsenic much above the permissible limits. So, but the government doesn't recognize this, despite their own laboratory having proven that there is a presence of arsenic. Similarly, in other affected areas in North Bihar, this technology needs to go. needs to go primarily because people can relate to it, people can manage it. So, our approach right now has been to keep pushing dug well as a sustainable solution, also contextual solution across areas in North Bihar which are flood affected and are also arsenic affected. The role of the government is definitely huge. Looking at the fact that the Honorable Chief Minister's priority of the 7 vows, one of the vows happens to be providing safe water to each and every household. Now, it is extremely important for the system to understand, for the government to understand that there are solutions which has been present in the state for a long time. Instead of going and tapping groundwater, there are groundwater in the sense by doing boring and then lifting the water and putting it in over a tank. There are ways in which a local solution, a local grid could be, put in place, which can be easily managed by people, can be easily accessible, could be easy. I mean, it's more of the way they manage their own fields. If that element of ownership comes into looking at water collectively, it is going to survive for a very long time.